Now, there's been a lot of talk about this first season of Andor, Mason.
There's been a lot of talk about a lot of things.
That's certainly true.
Why don't we join the conversation?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So people are saying that this is some of the best Star Wars, if not the best Star Wars, since the original trilogy.
Some are even going as far to say that it's good television on its own merits. Can you imagine?
Who said that? No, I think that's true.
I think it's true
I think
also.
both of those things are true.
Yeah.
I also think it's not for everybody. I think younger kids, for example, I wouldn't show my son this who likes Star Wars. He'd be like, what?
Yeah.
Why is that man following that woman who works for the spy agency or whatever?
Sure.
What's this about? I don't like this love story.
Why is that droid, why is he stuttering? Is it his PTSD? What's going on?
I could also, I guess, understand why you might find this boring if you're used to lightsabers and the Force and just a cavalcade of characters that you recognize. Because you might get like a Two Tubes, someone you might recognize in this as a minor character, or you see an X-Wing. But this is not like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all Star Wars needs to be like this. What I think the strength of Star Wars always has been, even in the modern day, is that it caters to such a wide audience.
Sure, it's an entertainment industry unto itself.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that, is not good from my perspective.
Right, sure.
But, the stuff that I like and you like might be, is obviously different from what other people like. Some people loved the Book of Boba Fett, probably.
Somebody loved that Grogu short that came out
Somebody
recently.
probably loved that
Somebody
as well.
probably loved that, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think one of the things I liked about this, among many things, is first of all that people leave a like.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
What's something you were going to say?
That would represent your like
Yeah.
for this. I'm just going to say, what did you think about it?
I thought it was terrific.
I also thought it was terrific.
Yeah, I saw the first 3 episodes early, and I'm like, I think this is great, but what
Right.
if I say it's great, and then it just takes a hard nosedive?
Right.
And I was almost expecting that every episode, where I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, this is bad, actually. This is terrible.
What's interesting as well is that I also watched the first 3 episodes came out on Disney Plus. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. And then I just stopped.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll get to it at some other point, and I just never did. And then we were like, we should make a video on this. And I'm like, I'll
We
get
should
to
make
it.
Collings to make a video on this.
For
we
sure,
said, yeah.
absolutely. I absolutely did say that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I've got 7 or 8, 9
Never more than 12.
episodes to go of this.
Yeah.
And I was just so compelled from episode to episode.
Yeah.
The show that I felt it was most similar to, it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time, The Wire.
Yes.
Because
Never heard of it.
yeah, in the first season of The Wire, Detective McNulty, who is sort of the de facto main character in the ensemble cast, he wants to take down Baltimore's kind of drug dealing empire. Does he want to do that to make the streets safe for people in Baltimore? Not really. He wants to do it because he has a run-in with Stringer Bell, who's like one of the higher ups in this organization, and he just doesn't like him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this criminal thinks he's smarter than me. He's not, so I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was just a sort of microcosm of that show and very similar to this show in that the Empire is scary in this show, I think.
Yes.
And I find that in a way that...
They can shoot.
Yes, and in a way that it hasn't been for me since I was a kid,
Yeah.
probably. And it's not, the idea of the Emperor there and lightning is coming down. He's like, I've got 1 million Star Destroyers. Like, that's not...
Pretty scary.
That's not... I mean, it's pretty scary. But
I mean, if you were there, it would be scary.
yeah, but it's just like he's just a guy who's being evil for
Yeah.
the sake of being
Who
evil.
cares?
Whereas in this, we see the reasons why the people in the Empire, why this machine keeps going and why they're so evil. And some of it is spite.
Yes.
And some of it is trying to prove themselves. And
Yeah, like social climbing.
social climbing.
Yeah.
And some are doing it because they believe in it, but they're also suck-ups, the worst villains of them all. And I love that, the idea that we saw a tiny little bit of this, I think, in Kenobi,
Yeah.
where the Inquisitors are always infighting.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen more of that in that show.
Yeah, but I think this is what we got out of this, and it's just, we see it behind all the villains, and some of them are just cruel because they like to be cruel, and how did they become that way? And
Yeah.
I think that was really fascinating. to
And
me.
you're rooting for Dedra, whatever her name is,
Mm-hmm.
because you want her to climb up the ranks and to stick it to the other ISB agents, but she's horrible.
Yeah.
So like she gets to the top and then you're like, oh no, that's bad because she's really good at her job and she's a bad guy actually. Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the reason this flows so well, and maybe you kind of were turned off after the first 3 episodes, and like, oh, I'll come back to it, is because it's broken up into very distinct arcs. So you kind of know when you're going into an episode that this is going to run 2 or 3 episodes and then a new thing's going to happen. And so you kind of get those peaks and troughs where it's not action all the time, and episodes are literally in place just to build up something 2 episodes down the line.
An Easter egg?
An Easter egg, for example. I'm talking about the prison break even specifically, but it works for all of the arcs where we see the mundanity of it. It's basically, and this was actually spoken about, it's just the THX universe, from George Lucas's early movie. Just really sterile and clean and oppressive, and just every step of it is just designed to break your spirit, emotionally and physically wear you down. And then you get all that. So then you get the prison break. You introduce the characters, Kino Loy, all of that. He starts as a guy who's just like, I just want to get out of here. But the moment where he realizes, I'm not getting out of here, I'm going to have to push through this. It just makes the payoff so much better.
Yeah. I loved it. It's good to see Andy Serkis get another shot at the Star Wars franchise after Snoke and maybe other characters.
I think just Snoke at this point.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But what I liked about his portrayal, and I guess most of his live action stuff, he spent literally decades focusing on every aspect of his face and every movement, and so he's got a lot. He's got so much in there.
Absolutely, and I love that there's so many characters in this that just come and go. And is this guy alive? They just leave him. He can't swim and he's gone.
Yeah.
And I would love if you just never know.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in life sometimes. You have like a really intense run-in with somebody.
Not to me, I'm friends with everybody.
Sure, yeah. But you might have it, me, for example.
Yeah.
You have an intense run-in with somebody, or you work with somebody and it's a really like, the environment's full on and you're bound together in this thing, and then you leave and you just literally never see that person again.
Well, exactly.
And you're like, I hope they're all right.
Yeah, I mean, and there was, what I liked about this, speaking of that, but I think it's representative of a lot of stuff there. There wasn't a miraculous save there. We may never see them again. There might be a triumphant return. He might be, captured and interrogated by the ISB in the next season or something like that.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a moment where Andor's just like, oh, you can't swim? Well, I'll carry you, jump in the water and I'll help you. And then they get out there together. It's just like, he's just like, I probably can't. Like, if I help you, I mean, he got pushed off the platform anyway, but he's if he tried, they probably both would have drowned. And he's just like,
well, that's the thing.
I don't know, man.
I think if he hadn't have been knocked off, I feel like he probably would have just left anyway. I mean, this is a guy who would just point blank shoot somebody on a whim. You see it multiple times in this. He's like, well, it's him or me, and it's me. Today it's me. One day it's not going to be me.
Yeah.
But, not today.
But I'm not going to leave it till the last moment where they're about to draw or whatever. I'll just shoot him now.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Easier,
And that's another thing I love about this. Just people just get shot and die immediately. Often in Star Wars, you get winged by a blaster and you're like, oh, I'm okay, and you get up and whatever. Or if you're a Jedi, you block them until you can't or whatever. There's so many moments where somebody goes to be a hero and they're like, this is my moment. And they run out and you spend episodes with them and then they're dead.
Yeah.
And it's not like they fall to the ground and they're like, oh, somebody carry me. Just fucking dead.
Or like, there's the moment where in one of the arcs where Cassian is sort of, part of the heist to steal the payroll and they escape on that kind of jump jet situation and the payload just crushes that kid to death.
Yeah. And they bring him back just to escape. And that's it.
Yeah.
And there's very few examples in this show of just spaceships doing all-out warfare. There's probably 2. There's that moment, which is just spectacular, where they're flying through the asteroid belt. And then there's the moment where Luthen uses his ship to tear apart that Imperial cruiser, whatever it is. And he's just an absolute animal of a man.
Yeah.
And he knows it. Like that moment with the monologue, which is, I know people have talked to death at this point.
When he speaks to his inside man at the ISB and he's just like, I don't have anything. I've chosen this. And now it's too late for me. I thought that was really...
It's this, and I'm not going to get a medal at the end. I'm not going to stand next to Luke Skywalker after he blew up the Death Star and, shake everybody's hand. Nobody's even going to know me, at the end. I'm just going to die anonymous.
It was I think this whole show was such a great showcase of normal people in the Star Wars universe who aren't connected to the Force, who aren't connected to...
I mean, everyone's connected to the Force.
That's very true. They're all living things, midichlorians. But they're not connected to, any royal families or destinies or,
Mon Mothma, but yeah.
Well, that's true.
But even then,
Stop dismantling my argument.
no, but that's like the most prominent, probably,
Yeah.
character from the mainline canon.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Saw Gerrera, but it's not.
Yeah.
And she's only a minor player in the movies anyway.
But there's nobody lining up a lightsaber and just cutting a swath through, and there's
Yeah.
nobody being like, oh, looks like they're in trouble, but he can do a big jump and get out of here.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's no big jumps to be had. There's awkward climbing. So much awkward climbing.
I think that's really interesting that the heroic moments that we see in Star Wars, in, the mainline films, and, the original ones in particular, because this leads directly into that, is all of these little people run out and just die and get mowed down, and then somebody else climbs on top, picks up the blaster, goes for as long as they can, they die, and that's all to get Han Solo to do the right thing at the last moment.
That's true, yeah.
And which also goes to show, under different circumstances, he's one of these guys.
Well, that's true. And, in the escape from the prison, so many of those characters, we spent a couple of episodes learning about everybody on Andor's table.
Yeah.
And, their personalities and their hopes and dreams to some extent, and how, do they want to escape? Have they given up on life? What have you? And any of them could have lived and died in that final escape, and most of them did. I thought that was interesting.
And the way that they parted at the end, because that other guy, he's in Rogue One. He's a very, very minor player who dies in Rogue One, like everybody does. But they're left alone, and they're just both broken from this thing that happened.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's probably just us.
Yeah, maybe we were the only two who made it, yeah.
Yeah, and they might never know either, or not for years.
But
at least.
The absolute enormity of... We can talk about kind of, the million Star Destroyers and all this sort of stuff, but I think the enormity of it struck me in the vastness of space, and just the idea that Andor was he made it through this heist, and then he just got arrested for standing around. And then it was just, a kangaroo court, a corrupt court that just convicted him and gave him 6 years, and he had no way of getting out of it. And then he was just lost in the shuffle, and everybody he knows was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to this guy. And then
I don't have his number.
And then sort of, just brought into indentured slavery because they were just like, we need men to build this whatever machinery we're putting together. And makes you think about present day life and such.
Well, it does. It absolutely does.
Because he doesn't have a big time lawyer. Isn't Mon Mothma?
No, exactly. Yeah, because wealth gets you, well, only so far, but quite a long way, in life and in the Star Wars universe. But I think it's also interesting to see the evolution of his character, because at the start it's just about survival and it's just kind of chipping away. You make a bit of money, you kind of put the boot in a little bit, then you hide. And you see that kind of come away because he just wants to go on holiday and just be like, I did a big heist. And then when he's drawn back into the machine, he's like, I have to now do something.
Yeah.
And his mother knows that, who dies tragically just off screen. I mean, she gets a hologram moment at the end, but I like that idea also of just like, sometimes someone just dies and you don't get to have a moment with them. They
Not
just
me.
die.
I'm present for all of my loved ones' deaths. I guess I'm built different though,
Yeah. But I also like that Andor...
Wait, that sounded suspicious. Wasn't me.
But I also... I haven't worked out whether he's doing this as survival or just because it's the kind of person that he is, but he's happy to let somebody else take credit for an idea of his. And I think
the moment where Kino is inspired by his own words to lead the rebellion out of the prison.
You do it. And the moment where...
Hey, that's my line.
Yeah, you see it in the heist where...
He copied me.
But you see it in the heist where he's just like, giving other people prompts and then giving them credit for it. But I think that just might be survival because he's not like a... pop his head up and everybody have a look at me, I'm a hero kind of guy. I think it's just like, well, maybe they'll focus on somebody else and not me if I just keep a low profile.
But also great, this slow evolution into this reluctant hero, I think is very cool.
And I think it does a really good example of showing, and they explicitly say this, that, the Empire, it's tightening its grip on people, and this has been true of real life, but there's effort involved in that. Fascism and a dictatorship and all of this.
James, what are you talking about? It's about starships.
You're right.
It's about starships and lightsabers.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's not about the UK, but really more recently American imperialism. It's not about that, is it, Mason?
I
don't know who would say that. I'm not saying that.
I mean, it's certainly not about a large organisation just invading foreign neighbours and taking all their resources.
It's not about that.
It's not about that.
But that's a classic us not profiting from the lesson of history, because you look at the inception of this country and it's a very noble fight of the underdog against the massive empire. You look at the situation now where America is so proud of being the biggest economy, the most powerful military force on the planet. It's become the empire from the perspective of a lot of people around the world.
It was the empire during the Vietnam War. And what we never learned from England or Rome or, we never got it. We never said, well, wait, this isn't the right thing to do. And we're still struggling with it.
You have a great line, which is, so this is how liberty dies.
We're in the middle of it right now.
To thunderous applause.
Yeah, it's about lightsabers. Well, not this show, but another show.
It's about spreading order across the universe, and that's important.
Yeah. But the fact that, they're isolating people, they make you feel alone. They make you feel like you're the only one who feels this way. But the more they tighten their grip, and Princess Leia even says this, that's a conscious effort that you have to maintain. Like, to keep this order, you can't take your foot off the pedal. And that's a weakness in itself because you have to be constantly vigilant over everybody all the time. And it's just, that cannot be maintained in the long term. So you see these little breaks, and they don't mean anything on their own. But on a wider scale, it all adds up. But I love that we've got Luthen, who is kind of orchestrating so much of this, and he'll just allow a team to just fully walk into a trap to save one guy that he might use for later for another thing that might pay off.
Yeah.
And Saw Gerrera.
Are you saying that there's bad guys on both sides, James?
That's what I'm... he says that explicitly. Like, I use the tools of my enemy to, I've become this horrible thing.
Sounds like they're pretty even then.
You're right. It's all the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Why can't they just have a drink together and, the
there must be a middle ground.
Right? Let's find a happy middle ground.
And then that realization that Saw Gerrera has, and you see where his paranoia comes from.
Hey, you got a guy. There's a guy on the inside.
And he's like, yeah, it's this guy. It's this guy right here.
Fish face 2 tubes. What are you doing to me?
Yeah. And Saw Gerrera realizes that the only reason that, he wouldn't let him walk into a trap is because he knows who Luthen is. So he's like, well, he's more valuable.
And he'd give me up.
He'd give me away potentially. But I didn't mention this before, but that space battle I loved because...
The one where Luthen is being interrogated by the Imperial cruiser with the big satellite dish.
Yeah, which is like an early concept art from the first movie. But first of all, I like the idea that it's just, what if the Millennium Falcon was just not a complete pile of shit?
Sure, right?
Like, everything works.
What if a rich guy owned it?
Yeah. And it's so well thought out that the battle isn't just like, here's 1,000,000 ships, how are you going to get away? He's got these very specific protocols in place for this exact scenario.
Yeah.
And he knows that they'll probably send out 4 TIE fighters. I can probably take out most of them and then escape.
Yeah,
and
it's sort of, I like
somebody thought about it.
Somebody thought about it, and somebody went, why wouldn't there be anti-tractor beam device? Like, why wouldn't there be, the tractor beam is sucking everything towards the Imperial cruiser. Why wouldn't there be a device that just sends a bunch of hypervelocity darts in that direction and destroys it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And I just also, I love Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma, who originally appeared in like a deleted scene from Revenge of the Sith and now has got to be this character. She's an amazing actor. And just, she's in this relationship with this guy who just does not care, is beyond caring. He's living his own life. He was in Monarch of the Glen, the television show, Mason. And her daughter is rebelling.
Living off those Glenny bucks.
Exactly. And her daughter is rebelling against her, rebelling against like the old ways of where she's from.
Right, yeah.
And because often kids will do that. They'll, for a time, maybe go...
Not my kids. They do exactly what I tell them.
They'll do the opposite. And she's drowning. Like, despite the wealth and the opulence that she's surrounded in, she's got this like false persona of somebody who's just pushing back a little bit, but below that, she's pushing back like really hard. And, so they're keeping her around because, well, it gives like the idea that people do have a say, but they really don't. And she knows that, and she's constantly being watched. And I assume it's going to get to the point where it's just all going to fall apart and her husband's probably going to get murdered or something.
And
or go to jail.
Do you reckon that's when she's going to turn into Mothra finally?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're going to get that. But the fans have been demanding it. When is Mon Mothra going to turn into Mothra fully evolve,
Absolutely.
And just blow up a Star Destroyer or whatever.
I also really enjoyed in the last episode how, they all converge in the one place at the end for the funeral. But instead of like doing the Harry Potter ending, which happens at the end of every Harry Potter book, they all stand in a room together, every character, and is like, well, this is my story and this is why we're all here.
Yeah.
Like most of them just don't see each other and then they go off in the galaxy or they die. I think that feels right. And just I loved that line about how, the Empire or any force, hypothetically, it's multiple atrocities.
Want to hedge your bets.
That's right. It's multiple atrocities and lies upon lies, and you can never keep up. If it was one big thing, you'd be like, well, you did that one big thing. But it's just it's a constant stream of horrible activity that you just can't wrap your head around.
Exactly, yeah.
And then it's over. You know, you turn around and you're in a cage. Yeah. Anyways, Mason, Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah. I love the costumes also, and the sets and costumes. And I love that some of the rebel weapons are just like repurposed AK-47s and stuff.
Well, that's what they did.
That was the classic. That's the classic Star Warsy kind of prop situation there, which I thought was good.
I thought for some of this, this must be some volume stuff going on, but apparently Tony Gilroy, who obviously had a huge hand in this, and massive respect for being a guy who clearly doesn't care about Star Wars and just went, I'm going to make a good story.
Right.
I think that's great. They should do more of that.
I'm going to bring all my brothers and or fathers and sons into this.
That's right.
All the other Gilroys.
So there's no volume stuff in this apparently because it's really, when you're planning something like this, it's one or the other. They're using the volume to do other things. And I'm not against the volume at all. I think it has been used really effectively, and other times it does feel like you're just standing in a room that you can see the edges of, like just sort of.
You were a fan of the volume use in Thor: Love and Thunder, correct?
Yeah, that looked really good all of the time.
Sure.
Remember the bit at the end when they were just in a big white room?
Yes.
It was good, wasn't it?
It was very good.
Yeah, but so much of this, like the sets and locations, was just like real brutalist architecture, and they'll add some props or elements, or they'll like extend the background to add like an imperial whatever, and it just looks great because it's just a real mossy, awful planet or whatever. It really works. Anyways, Mason, I know you love Easter eggs.
I do.
Here's some.
Okay.
Briar pistol.
Princess Leia's sporting blaster?
Cassian Andor has one, and it's Kyle Katarn's weapon from Dark Forces.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Big fan. And also, it's just a gun with a bit on the end.
Nice. Is that it? The one Easter egg?
Well, there was an article in THR where they spoke to Tony Gilroy, and they're like, what about all these Easter eggs in, that Luthen shop or whatever? Multiple wigs, by the way, and personalities. Loving all of that, Mason.
The subterfuge.
It's all going to come undone, but I love it. And he's like,
hey, it's just this guy wearing a wig. We just hired a wig noticer.
That's right. Yeah, we could have got a droid to do it, but we got a real person.
We could have got that woman who can shapeshift. We never actually see her shapeshift. We could have got her. So we just got the wig guy.
That's right. But, there's a bunch of stuff in Luthen's shop.
Oh.
There's like a Force Unleashed armor and whatever.
Oh,
and
just a copy of The Force Unleashed.
Yeah, that's right.
On PS2, 3.
Well, I think it was on both, Mason. It was on multiple platforms.
Well, that's the collector's edition, every
That's
version.
right. Anyways, those are your Easter eggs. But I want to talk about season 2 and what we might see. But I loved this tweet from the man of Astoria who said, imagine if Andor's season finale is great, just really thoughtful and compelling stuff, but then there's a post-credit sequence with an evil Yoda who's like red.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Anyway, season 2, what are you looking to see?
That's a great question.
Well, they never addressed Cassian's sister, which kicked off this whole thing. But maybe she's dead? And
it's pretty likely. Because she's just another of a billion anonymous people in this universe. I would like to see Kino return in some capacity, but maybe he's dead.
I want to see more Bix and that torture, it's not easily recoverable. She's having a terrible time of it. And just the repercussions of that, there's talk or rumors at least that if something like this continues after Cassian's death, spoiler alert, Mason, when he gets obliterated, when his eyes go wide, then he's obliterated.
Yeah.
Like she could get like a series or something, which I think would be terrific.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be getting, Mon Mothma on the run at some point.
Yes, sure.
She does her transformation and she flies off into the night sky.
Well, obviously, I'd like, the second season to give Cassian some sort of back to tank treatment where he becomes super laser proof and therefore can survive his atomization in Rogue One. I think that'd be great. They dig him out and they put him on Luke Skywalker's team or whatever. That'd be fun. With Red Yoda.
So
everybody's back.
Everybody's back. Presumably we're going to be getting K2SO, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
guess
we'd
so.
have to. We're getting one more season.
Well, yeah, because he was Andor was menaced by a couple of those security droids on his beach planet.
They're terrifying.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I think I saw Star Wars Explained talk about this. I wonder where they're going to get that stuttering droid, like maybe put some of his personality into it. I'd kind of rather keep that separate, I think.
Do you think we're going to, because his first appearance in
Droid
Flashback.
is just the Charlie Brown of droids,
right?
Mason. God.
His first Flashback appearance, he doesn't have the stutter. Do you think we'll ever see the backstory, or is it just assumed?
Just a thing that happened.
It's
something came loose.
Yeah, yes. But again, I think what I liked about this series is that every character is compelling and we want to see them again, we want to know about them, I feel like that should be enough. We don't need to establish the adventure that knocked his screws loose and gave him the stutter.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get it eventually in the comic or whatever.
Sure, no, that's very true. Yeah. We don't need to see all that stuff. It's just good for flavor, you know?
What I think is also interesting about this is that it hasn't apparently been doing particularly well on Disney+.
Let me ask you about this, James.
Sure.
Whenever you went to watch it on Disney+, was it just right up there on the top of the
Not
thing?
always, no.
It wasn't, right?
No.
Even when it was like new episode day, I'm like, we received an email about that. I'm sure I can't find it right now.
Yeah.
But they asked, hey, did you have any problem finding it? And I'm like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the and I'm like, was that deliberate?
Maybe.
Is there somebody out there with their own agenda, James? Like these ISB wieners there being like, well, it can't do better than Kenobi because otherwise it'll look like original content's better than mining nostalgia. So let's bury it in the whatever.
Yeah.
I'm willing to believe that, James.
Well, I think what's probably going to happen in between seasons is, well, first of all, they're airing it on multiple networks now, which I think is because it's probably not doing very well.
Right.
And I think that's because a lot of the Star Wars shows or episodes, they're just fine. You know? Like, I know a lot of people compare this to Kenobi and go, Kenobi sucks. And
Not me, I compare it to The Wire.
Yeah,
Objectively
sure.
great show.
Yeah. And look, I understand that. I think Kenobi is what it is, and we've got a video on it. I don't think it's great. I think it has some pretty good high points, but then some pretty, like, mediocre stuff in the middle. But I think people might have seen that and, like, Book of Boba Fett and then a show about a guy they don't remember and go, well, no. But I think
Which show was that?
the one we just watched.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And then hopefully, well, not that it really matters because they're doing the season regardless. You know, it'll pick up traction in between seasons. And then when it comes back, maybe it'll be a bigger deal. But we're getting it anyway, so I don't care ultimately.
It's true. There's nothing we can do.
No, that's it.
Much like something, the Empire something.
Very good, Mason, and well said. Anyways, if people have any thoughts on this, please leave it below. Is it a high point of Star Wars? Is it a pinnacle? Is it better than The Phantom Menace? Who's to say?
Is it better than The Wire? Is it better than The Shield?
Yeah, probably.
Is it better than Young Sheldon?
Yes. I haven't seen Young Sheldon, but, you know what? I don't know. I haven't seen it. Who am I to say?
That's right. Does Cassian Andor need a catchphrase is all I'm asking that we can put on a T-shirt.
Maybe you want to see any of these videos early, Mason. For example, you might.
I might.
You can actually head over to bigsandwich.co where videos like Caravan of Garbage, for example, go up there early. And in addition to that, there's movie commentaries, there's bonus podcasts. Our podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows every Monday, comes out a day early, ad-free on the Sunday. Yeah. It's like a private Patreon, isn't it, Mason?
That's right.
Or maybe you just want to hang around here or check out our podcast, The Weekly Planet, just whenever you want. Big thank you to Raw Collings for editing this video. He did a good job, didn't he, Mason?
He did a bazinga job.
Yeah.
Absolutely bazinga.
Absolutely. Anyways, thanks, everybody.
Grab that jammy, guys. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.